So there's a relatively new field of research, and it is called basically the neuroscience of religion. It's also known as spiritual neuroscience and neurotheology. Kind of interesting. Any time that you would combine such words, I think it's certainly interesting. And what that means is basically, how are the brains of religious people different from the brains of people who don't have a religion? And how does a belief in God or meditating upon God change the function of the brain? So, some of the studies have shown that when meditating upon the divine or the divine experience, the frontal region of the brain is more active. The prefrontal cortex frontal region of the brain is more active. And of course, and I don't know if they've drawn the conclusion yet, but when I heard that, I immediately thought of the brain of the psychopath lacking activity in that frontal region of the brain. So, sure enough, when they do the same research with atheists, not that all atheists are psychopaths, but when they did the research with atheists, what they found was that region of the brain and the frontal area still lacked activity. It didn't light up with activity like it does a religious person or spiritual person. So you just can't help but think of the narcissist, who probably also lacks the same activity in that region of the brain as well. So it's interesting, is there some connection between spirituality and God and empathy and caring about other people? It would seem that there is. Narcissists are not spiritual people. They have religiosity. Religiosity is a strong belief in your religion, devoutness. That's not the same thing as spirituality. Any religious path or code of, living is not the same thing as spirituality. We know the narcissist has a lot of religiosity because it gives them control and power over other people and the right to be as judgmental and mean-hearted as they want to be. So they have religiosity, but they don't have spirituality. And their brains, the brains of psychopaths, obviously would reflect that. And this is not the conclusion that neurotheology has drawn, but you got to figure it follows. That they lack the same activity in that part of their brain. Maybe they just simply have no switchboard to communicate with things of a spiritual nature or God or have any understanding. And it's interesting to note that from what I can tell in the brain of people with Asperger's syndrome, they're also lacking in the frontal part of the brain, that same activity. And of course, they suffer from mind blindness, which is a capacity to understand social cues and what other people have in mind. And that definitely affects their ability to have empathy and empathize with other people and show empathy. So this connection between empathy and the frontal part of the brain, and even perhaps the power to connect to God and have spirituality, does seem to show in neuroscience. It's very interesting.